Hi everyone, welcome to Lino's channel. Today we're going to talk about a phrase that has recently become very popular on the Chinese internet, America's execution line. First, this term originally comes from gaming. In many role-playing or competitive games, when your opponent's HP drops below a certain threshold, you only need to cast one powerful skill to finish them off instantly. That critical threshold is called the execution line. In other words, once your HP falls below that line, a single hit can end the battle. Later, this term was borrowed into real-world social discussions. On Chinese social platforms, in comment sections and some videos, the phrase America's execution line is used to express an idea like this. The lives of ordinary Americans may look shiny on the surface, but in reality they're extremely fragile. Once they encounter unemployment, major illness, accidents, or other shocks, they may quickly fall into poverty or disaster. In other words, it conveys the view that the social safety net for ordinary Americans is very thin. Once risks exceed what society allows, it's like falling below the execution line. There's no buffer, no protection, and you get knocked down very quickly. This metaphor has been repeatedly emphasized in some posts and videos, which is why it has gradually become a kind of trending narrative. Right now, the rapid spread of this phrase in China relies on several factors. Some online video creators use dramatic storytelling to discuss American social issues. Some commenters and sharers treat this expression as objective truth and amplify it. Certain domestic media and accounts deliberately emphasize narratives like, "America is collapsing," and "The West is declining," in order to cater to a specific audience's emotional preferences, especially nationalist sentiment. On social media, as long as the content fits emotional expectations such as a bad America and a strong China, it spreads faster and wider. So, the phrase execution line, originally just a gaming metaphor, has gradually evolved into what looks like a concept with social science meaning. This phrase really went viral after appearing on the channel of someone who claimed to be a Chinese medical student studying in Seattle. In his videos, the United States is portrayed as a completely failed country, full of gang violence everywhere, illegal immigrants everywhere, and birds in Seattle supposedly not afraid of humans because they grew up eating corpses on the roadside. He also claimed that because he had a good relationship with his professor, he managed to get a part-time job collecting corpses, and that he saw many American families selling their relatives' bodies in exchange for living expenses. He even claimed that during Halloween in Seattle, a large number of starving children went door-to-door begging for food. In his description, America is basically hell on earth. He even openly encouraged people to kill white people on the battlefield. Of course, his claims are full of obvious loopholes. For example, how could a so-called part-time corpse-collecting medical student still have time to livestream for several hours almost every day? But despite that, he still gained quite a few supporters. And now you can see the phrase execution line in many places. Based on my experience living in China, there is almost certainly some official power behind pushing this narrative. But let's set aside that absurd blogger for a moment and instead talk about this question. Is the so-called American execution line real or not? This is the most important part. We need to look at it on two levels. First, the United States does indeed face some real problems, such as high medical costs and a complex insurance system, a significant wealth gap, a social safety net, welfare, assistance that isn't as comprehensive as in some other countries. A system where individuals bear more personal responsibility for risk. These are objective facts based on data and public discussion. They are not conspiracy theories. But this does not mean that the extreme metaphor of an execution line accurately describes the lives of all Americans. Reality is far more complex. Not everyone collapses instantly after one small accident. Many people have solid insurance, family support, and job protections. The U.S. does have social assistance programs, NGOs, and charity networks. Individual outcomes vary widely depending on region, profession, and education level. reducing the entire American social structure to a cliff-like one step and you fall to your death model is obviously exaggerated. So why is this phrase so popular inside China? That has a lot to do with emotional identification and narrative preference. For some people, saying America is bad is an easy way to generate a sense of superiority. It connects emotionally with nationalism and moral self-righteousness. Content creators often use dramatic storytelling to attract attention. From the creator's perspective, extreme and exaggerated conclusions get more clicks and views. Simplified, binary narratives spread more easily and get more comments and reposts. But from the standpoint of logic and factual rigor, this kind of narrative often forces evidence to serve the conclusion, instead of letting conclusions be shaped by evidence. As an observer, here's what I think. Discussing American social problems is necessary. No society is perfect, and acknowledging differences and challenges is a sign of maturity. But reducing complex issues into a single execution line phenomenon is simply not rigorous analysis. Extreme metaphors may have emotional or rhetorical impact, but they are not scientific tools for understanding society. We can criticize the shortcomings of the U.S., but we must not ignore the multi-layered complexity of reality. Oversimplifying the structure of an entire country into a cliff-drop society is not analysis, it is emotional substitution. And more importantly, as Chinese people, shouldn't we first be reflecting on the many problems inside our own society? Oh wait, that isn't allowed. Unless you're ready to be censored. America's execution line, as an internet buzzword, reflects emotional resonance, not an empirically proven sociological conclusion. Under China's current economic downturn, this narrative works as a kind of psychological comfort. As long as Americans are suffering, it doesn't matter that we're not doing well either. This is the mental cushion provided to the public. If you enjoy deeper discussions like this, feel free to follow my channel. We'll continue the conversation in future episodes. Thanks for watching. See you next time.